And as we barrel toward a likely rematch of the 2020 election, one candidate continues to have a hold over white rural voters. But it's not Joe Biden. Joining us now, professor of political science at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, Tom Schaller, and journalist and opinion writer Paul Waldman. Their new book, out tomorrow, is entitled White Rural Rage, the Threat to American Democracy. Why are white rural voters a threat to democracy at this point?
I mean, we lay out the fourfold interconnected threat that white rural voters pose to the country. First of all, and we show 30 polls and national studies to demonstrate this, so we provide the receipts in Chapter 6. They're the most racist, xenophobic, anti-immigrant, anti-gay geodemographic group in the country. Second, they're the most conspiracist group. QAnon support and subscribers, election denialism, COVID denialism and scientific skepticism, Obama birtherism. Third, anti-democratic sentiments. They don't believe in an independent press, free speech. They're most likely to say the president should be able to act unilaterally without any checks from Congress or the courts or the bureaucracy. They're also the most strongly white nationalist and white Christian nationalists. And fourth, they are most likely to excuse or justify violence as an acceptable alternative to peaceful public discourse.
So you mentioned a lot of negative factors about this demographic. Tom, what else do they have in common? I mean, what makes them vulnerable?
Oh, well, a lot of that has to do with, as a starting point, the problems that rural America has, which are very real and very profound. They have more problematic education systems. They have poor infrastructure. They've had a lack of economic opportunity. We've seen a lot of manufacturing jobs leave from rural areas. And that kind of left them open to someone like Donald Trump, who would come along and tell them something that was true, that there is a system that has not served them well. And he said—
They're pissed off.
They are pissed off, and they have some reason to be. With both parties. The trouble is that what Donald Trump gave them was not something that was actually going to fix those problems, but was just a way to channel their rage and anger. And, you know, we've been told for so long, especially Democrats have been told, that in order to get rural voters, to get them to listen to you, you have to go there, you have to really empathize with them, you have to show them that you understand their lives, you have to, you know, put on a Carhartt jacket and go down to somebody's farm.
Have a beer.
And maybe milk a cow.
Yes.
And it turned out that none of that was true.
No.
When Donald Trump came along, he didn't do any of that stuff. He was just a conduit for their rage, their anger, their resentment. And that turned out to be what they wanted. And it wasn't really about the material conditions of their lives, because he didn't improve their lives. Liar! He got more support in rural areas in 2020 than he had in 2016, despite the fact that none of their problems had gotten any better under him. All that he gave them was a way to essentially give a big middle finger to Democrats, to people who live in cities, and to the rest of the country.
Isn't he more than a conduit to their rage? Isn't he also a symbol of their aspirations to an extent?
They are, but what are their aspirations? As we write the book, I guess, but they're not getting there, right? Poverty is soaring in between 20.
And why aren't they seeing that?
I think this is the disconnect, right? They'd rather channel their rage. I think what a lot of rural white Americans have decided is that their economic fortunes are decided by globalization and, frankly, late-stage capitalism, which is eating up all the mom-and-pop stores and taking away, you know, the extractive industries and coal and farming and so forth. So they might as well vote on their cultural issues. They might as well vote on God, gun, and religion, because they feel like neither party is going to deliver any material benefit. They're not going to reverse the closure of rural pharmacies and rural hospitals and rural healthcare treatment facilities, which are now disappearing, not because of communism and not because of socialism, but because of capitalism, right? Rural pharmacies and hospitals are closing because they're not money makers, and unless they're part of a regional chain, they're disappearing. So Trump comes in and says, let's just hate on cities, let's just hate on minorities, let's hate on immigrants, and at least they can deliver on that. And so they're not even voting in their material interests anymore, and that's causing a further decay and decline of rural communities.